Spice up your life.
On Vibes Radio. The news at the top of the hour on Vibes Radio.
Good morning, this is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Operations at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport are expected to resume today if pilots comply with the court order asking them to return to work. Employment and Labour Relations Court Judge Ann Moore asked the pilots to return to work from 6 a.m. this morning.
The respondent members, and especially the Kenya Airways pilots, resume their duties as pilots by 6 a.m. on 9th November 2022 unconditionally.
In addition, KQ has been asked to desist from implementing legal action against the pilots until the case presented is heard and determined. Also, the Union of Pilots, that is CALPA, has until Friday this week to respond to the matter.
The applicants KQ to allow the pilots to perform their duties without harassing them or intimidating them, and especially by not taking any disciplinary action against any of them pending the hearing and determination of these suits. 3. The respondents are given until Friday, 11th November 2022 to file their reply to the applications dated 28th November 2022 and application dated 6th November 2022 and serve the applicants accordingly.
KQ is similarly expected to submit its response in court by the 15th of this month. The case will be mentioned on the 15th of this month.
Upon service, the applicants will file their written submissions of 10 pages by 15th November 2022, and the respondents will also file their submissions by 17th November 2022, that is 10 pages. The case will be mentioned on 21st of November 2022 to confirm compliance and to give a date for ruling.
Now, Trade CS Moses Courier's Drought evicts quarters on the East Africa Portland cement factory land immediately. Speaking at an event where the factory launched a type of cement called Green Triangle Cement aimed at reducing environmental pollution, Courier raised an issue with the factory's activities, he says, have continued to be crippled despite having large land that he claims has been invaded by squatters. Courier hinted that he is planning to build a cargo airport on the piece of land and warned that he will soon send officers from the NYS to evict squatters on it.
East African Portland will be the best cement factory, the best cement company, and also the best cargo hub in East and Central Africa. Yeah? But for me to do that, we have a small problem. When I'm trying to think about a cargo city that we want to develop right here, what I'm trying to write here on your neighborhood, I'm trying to come up with a modern engineering center for the numerical machines company. Both NMC, which falls within my ministry, and East African Portland, you are bedeviled by the same problem, the problem of squatters.
In September, the East Africa Portland Cement Company started selling the 709 acres of land to the squatters in a plan where they will pay gradually over the next 3 years. However, it is uncertain whether the program will continue as planned following the threat from Cabinet Secretary Moses Courier. The government has allocated 50 billion shillings to public universities and another 15.8 billion shillings to help loans. Education CS Ezekiel Muchogu further defended himself about claims that the government will stop funding universities, saying he was misquoted.
Nobody ever said, I repeat it here, that university funds are going to be done away with. No. I think it's better we get the entire story. What we said is yes, government is supporting universities, and the government will be able to continue supporting universities through capitation and even infrastructural funds that the government does support universities each and every year.
The Inspector General of Police nominee Javed Kaume appeared before the Parliamentary Committee for Vetting. Kaume was tasked with assuring Kenyans that it will protect them from extrajudicial killings as well as forceful disappearance. Kaume, when asked how he will deal with the high cases of Kenyan domestic workers being mishandled on countries, said that he will ensure that he addresses the situation. He further promised Kenyans a reward for reporting rogue officers especially those on traffic, saying it will be made easy as they'll have name tags. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Arseto. Good morning.
.0 Spice FM, Nakuru.
It's Tuesday, isn't it Tuesday? It's Wednesday. Okay, so what does it look like on these Nairobi streets? We're looking at some traffic having started to build up in different parts of the city. Coming off of Thika Superhighway, it's doing the thing. Also looking at it coming out of Westlands, we'll see some traffic on Mombasa Road. People are getting out early this Wednesday in the middle of the week, and it looks like we're being primed for a busy Wednesday. All right, what does it look like? Starting to inch closer and closer towards the city, coming off of Limuru Road as well as Kiambu Road. But for now, we should be able to get where we're going quick, fast, and in a hurry, but please be careful. There's a chance of a sprinkle, so you don't want to get stuck on those slippery roads. So please be careful. Let's circle back in a while and see what it looks like as the day starts to climb. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us then. Let's keep things moving this Wednesday.
SpiceFM, Nyeri. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
Good morning and welcome to the Situation Room. Happy Wednesday, the 9th day of November 2022. Oh, no. Mambo.
Poa sana. Good morning.
Mimi niko good morning. Na wewe je?
Good morning yangu iko morning.
Your morning is morninging.
It's morninging.
Very good.
So,
say hello to that gentleman there.
Gentlemen, I greet you with the greetings and salutations of one Eric Latif and myself.
Greetings have been received. Children of God.
Amen.
I thank you.
Asante sana. Mambo ikoje?
Mambo ni maridadi sana bwana.
I was thinking that you all need to share some shares in your company with yours truly.
Because of why?
Because I'm nice.
Because you're part and parcel of the company, isn't it?
Sindio.
Eric, sumu zile kaplot ambayo iko kwa hili leo unaringa kila kisiku utaki.
Mimi ndio piece of land. Umeniona hivyo.
So umesema unataka share, you're not specific. Utaki view?
Rock view, rock haven.
Tunaweza kutafutia kakitu.
Hauwezi kosa kakitu.
Tuwezi kaa pamoja kila asubuhi alafu mkienda kufanya biashara. peke yangu.
Oh, no. Wewe tutakuwekea, but anyway, utatuambia whatever you're interested in. Unajua kampuni ni kubwa. According to KRA, we are actually microscopic. But forget KRA for the moment. Sisi tunajua sisi ni kampuni kubwa. Yes. Okay. Na sisi tunaelewa good governance.
Sasa mimi naweza leta hiyo good
it will help because at least it'll be a tiebreaker. You know this thing of it is you watu 10 kwa board. Sisi watu wawili. Decisions are made very quickly. Yes.
Hey.
So it's a yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So umeambiwa? You come and tell us what exactly unataka nini.
By the way,
tutakutafutia.
The thing about hii setup yetu, hatuna shida. Ukisema chairman, sote tunaitika. Yes. Naitika, mimi naitika. Ukisema treasurer, sote tunaitika.
Very good.
Apanjali.
Yes. Uko ndani.
Uko democracy.
Wewe pia utakuwa member.
Uko democracy.
Chairman pia.
Yes.
Yes. Wajua legenda something, ndio? Sasa ukikuja ile 1/3 ishafika.
Tumejaza.
Yes. Zizi. Constitutionally compliant.
Follow. Compliant.
Kabisa.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Well, everybody, welcome to the conversation. So, the president has been in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, where he's been talking and telling the West, listen, people, listen, you've been talking. Can you start walking the talk? To get some updates from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, we'll get to speak to Standard Group's digital editor, Carol Kimutai, who is in Egypt following what's happening in COP26. She'll be telling us something. 27. It's that one?
Yes.
Okay. COP27. She'll tell us about the stuff that's happening there this hour. At 7 o'clock, so there's a back and forth. Are universities being defunded or not? The CS for Education says, no, they're not being defunded. What we want is for them to also think outside the box and how they can make money. Is government funding enough, though, to run public universities and colleges? We will be speaking to the National Organizing Secretary of the Universities Academic Staff Union, UASU, Onesmus Mutio, joins us at 7 a.m. for that conversation. At 8 o'clock, we talk about the ongoing drought situation and what it leads to, and this is conflict over resources. And then in some parts of this country, particularly around Mandera, there is a constant threat of terrorist attacks. The Honorable Abdul Haro is a member of parliament for Mandera South. He joins us at 8 a.m. for that conversation. Keep it here for all that. City, your watch is still here. You're still wearing your watch.
I'm still wearing my watch on the table.
In fact, now you've placed it on the table now for us to see.
Then I will put it on my wrist. Yes. That watch that does everything. You know, my friend, technology is something to marvel at.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it?
The things it can do.
Is it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
Everything at your fingertips.
Tips. Yes. And he'll also be telling us about your buds.
Yes, I will.
All the Samsung gadgets that we have in the studio this morning. We've got phone, we've got tablet, we've got earbuds, we've got watches. This is all about Samsung and the gear. Tell you all about it. Tell us about COVID.
Okay, let me tell you about COVID and what's going on in the world. 638 million is still at that number. We know, again, I mean, it's not too much to repeat it often, that the temperatures are dropping around, especially towards the Western Hemisphere and then part of the eastern side of the globe. So it comes with it more COVID cases. However, it doesn't look too bad for now. Derbyshire, there's a firm in the UK that now has a twin COVID and flu test kit, and it has gotten the green light to sell this new combined test. So you can test for COVID and flu at the same time. We know that the symptoms mirror one another. They're called Derby Sure Screen Diagnostics, and it has passed the UK Health Security Agency's coronavirus test device approvals process, and it can now supply the product to hospitals and homes. So it's a rapid test. It detects both flu and COVID, and it analyzes a shallow nasal sample, which is collected by rotating the swab in the nasal cavity, and then you're able to get your test results in 10 minutes and voila. So sometimes the symptoms that you have for flu, one would think that you might have COVID. So what this test does is that it puts the sample through and it can tell you whether you have flu or COVID or whether you have what? Both.
Yeah.
Quite swanky, don't you think? Okay. So looking at new updates from the Ministry of Health, we're still at a positivity rate locally now of 10%. It's double the number that you want to be. But again, it will be interesting to see that as temperatures rise going into late November and early December, you're likely to see those numbers reduce yet again. That's what it looks like for COVID today.
Okay, so let's take that break and also tell you about where you can buy the land. Tunaanza mapema your best. You know about this property we'll be talking about, the Naserian Ridge Phase 3, which is a gated community just 20 minutes from Ngong along the newly tarmacked Ngong Suswa Road. Touching tarmac, it's only 500 meters from the tarmac.
500 meters.
Okay. People are asking, so how much is this land, Eric? Okay, it is only 650,000 shillings for a 50 by 100 lovely piece of land. The best news is, because seeing is believing, we are organizing a bus tour chaperoned by our own Jimmy Gathu on the 19th of November from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. for only 2,000 bob. Remember, any land purchases done courtesy of Jimmy Gathu Live will be advanced at 20,000 bob discount. So this is it. We're the guys. We're the plug. Buy through us, through Jimmy Gathu Live, get 20k discount.
Can you imagine?
650,000 minus 20,000?
630,000.
There you go.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
London Mulo and DJ Absolute. When the gang is together, you know it's
sugar and spice.
Great vibes, conversations, a lot of humor. I like to say we don't give an F, we give 3 Fs.
You and I are in this relationship, so it is me to tell you who we are.
When you ask a chick, how many guys have you been in? She's like, including you. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock. If I were you, I'd tune in to SpiceFM 94.4.
I want you on my team.
So does everybody else.
Yeah. 16 degrees in Nairobi this morning. We will see highs of 26, back down to lows of 16. It's 13 and clear in Nakuru, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 24 in a cloudy Nyeri at 13. 12 and clear in Eldoret, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 30 in a rainy Mombasa this morning at 25. 26 and mostly cloudy in Malindi in Kilifi County, highs of 30 and lows of 25. It's clear at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 28 in Kakamega, where it's currently clear at 14. Mostly cloudy conditions at 20 in Kampala, highs of 27 and lows of 18, and it's raining in parts of Dar es Salaam at 24. It'll go to highs of 30. It's 13 and clear in Johannesburg this morning, highs of 24, and we'll see highs of 32 in a mostly clear Lagos at 26. 23 and partly cloudy in Kinshasa, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 14. Beijing is Wednesday afternoon, it's 11 and sunny. It'll come down to lows of 5. Clear conditions in Paris, highs of 16 and lows of 7. And we'll see highs of 15 in a clear London at 12. New York is 10 degrees and clear Monday night. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 15 and lows of 4.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Edwin Victor says good morning. Spice FM is asking me specifically, these COVID numbers, do they account for people who have been affected twice or more? How have you been affected twice or more? Yes, the numbers we're talking about are, collective.
The cumulative
numbers. So yes, it would. Helen, good morning. Tuned in from Githima Munyu. Where is that?
It's in Githima Munyu.
Saubas.
Surely.
Peter Wagongo says good morning. Eric Ndu and CT, the city centre, is listening. Zachary Odio is tuned in from Kakamega and says good morning, Spice. I got up at 4 o'clock and witnessed kids as young as 9 preparing for school. That's old. In terms of age, 9 is old. You've got kids who are much younger preparing for school at that hour.
At 4 a.m.?
Yes. Getting up in the morning to get ready for school. Absolutely. It's happening.
Why does this happen?
Well, the thing is,
There aren't enough schools nearby.
that the choice of school for people is, so there's double factors here. Number one, the choice of school may be far from where you live. Number two is that the school transport, even if it is closer to where you live, is picking up quite a number of students in different locations. And so in order to beat the traffic and to be in school on time, which gets earlier and earlier, we're talking about 7 o'clock and, 7:15, then for the older kids in 7 and 8, that then they need to be on the road earlier in order not to be late.
In many parts of the country, it's because of what City had asked earlier, the proximity to a school.
Yes.
And many children get up and they're not waiting for a bus.
They're walking.
Many children get up at that 4 a.m. and they start walking towards
Or
school.
running.
Yes.
Running towards school.
Absolutely.
At that early hour of the morning. And they will be finding their way for lunch. And then they'll be finding their way home.
Back home. In the
Yes,
evening.
and some, before they actually go to school,
They're working.
There are some chores they have to attend
Absolutely.
to.
Yep.
Whether you're cutting napier grass, whether you're boiling. But you don't just wake up and go to
Or fending
school.
for your younger siblings.
Yes, you do. Then you start the journey of going to school.
Yep.
This is the reality of our times, folks. So the thing is, whether you're in an area whereby you have to get on the bus early, or whether you're in another part of the country where you're having to do things and then trek to school, that we are seeing children getting up earlier and earlier to go to school. And unfortunately, it is very bad for
No, it
development.
has consequences.
It does.
When it comes to just the mental and physical growth of the child, it has very direct consequences.
And we talk about learning, but we must understand also that even in as much as we are dealing with a blank canvas when it comes to children's minds, that what it does to that mind at that age, it needs the rest. It does. It needs the rest. Okay, guys, we can see you just took, it was important to talk about that. Asman Jr. says he's locked in from the last village of Athi River. Hey, okay. Sounds like a movie. Good morning, Colwen. He's
Last
tuned in.
village.
The last village.
It's a hotel.
Oh, he's locked in from the last village. It's actually a hotel
Yeah.
in Athi River?
Yeah.
Ah, voila. Okay. Nyahera Kisumu, Ndani, Jane Duta is tuned in. People used to call me Duta when they couldn't pronounce Ndu. But that's another story for another day.
Now they learned Nduko is also.
And then there was someone who really became adventurous and called you Ondu.
That is a story
For another day. Okay.
Yes. James Muli Kimanzi is tuning from Mombasa, and John says Rada, Pamoja. How many more words can we use?
Pamoja.
See you, John. Langat Kirui says good morning. Good morning, gang. Great to see you. Your trio makes my mornings mellow. Well, nice. Good morning to you, Onguka. Juthufu is tuned in. There was a strike. Is it over with the Ubers? Did you know there was something like that a couple of weeks ago?
Strike for a day.
Yeah, a couple of days and then they're over that.
The prices shot up like you wouldn't believe.
They're going to come back down. You know that, right?
I actually don't know.
They'll come down. Ondicho is tuned in from Wingi, and Boya says, good morning from Dagoretti. You are the reason I look forward to newer day, guys. Oh, wow. Okay, we see you all this morning. Karibu Sana, Newton, Simon, Sammy and Jane, Beatrice, Wamboi, Moses and Jack. Everybody, Karibu Sana and good morning.
Our friend in Malindi.
Dorcas.
Disappeared,
Don't know what happened.
didn't she?
Yeah.
Dorcas?
Hope you're well, Dorcas.
Yes, and please let us know how you're doing.
City.
Yes.
The proverb.
Yes, we are still in Mauritania. He who begins a conversation does not see the end.
He who begins
A
a
conversation,
conversation does not see the end.
Yes. These fellows are cryptic.
He who begins a conversation does not see the end.
Of the conversation or something else?
Well, the conversation sets more things than just the words in motion. Now, as to whether you will actually see the culmination of that conversation, the consequence of that conversation, should we say a different matter?
Combrite.
Yes.
Combrite.
Me thinks that is the reference point.
You think?
Yes. Now, I need to know what you think.
It would be the conversation is the subject of all of this.
Mimi kusema ukweli,
Uelewi.
mimi sina maoni.
Kwa
Sina
siku-
maoni kabisa.
Kwa siku ya leo.
Sina maoni.
Binafsi.
Sina. Let's take a look at the newspaper headlines, shall we? What's on the front pages?
On the front page of the Standard this morning, storm over presidential term limit. Okay, so a guy decided to say a few things. A suggestion by a UDA MP to amend the 2-term presidential limit raises political heat, with leaders dismissing it as a retrogressive move that will take the country back to the dark days of political repression. But Salah Yakub sticks to his guns, insists the debate to come to Parliament. Okay. That's on the front page. Then there's also, as reprieve for KQ as court ends 4-day pilot strike, the court said, okay, guys, enough, go back to work, stop this business. And
what have the pilots said?
Pilot said, okay,
we're going back to
work from 6 a.m. today.
Is that not a good thing?
Isn't it just?
Yes,
The
I
court
mean,
says
the
just
rule
stop
of law is being respected. It is a good thing.
But it's interesting because as well, the court has said these people will come back to work, but you will not discriminate against them in any way, shape, or form. Don't punish them for this.
This thing of
just let them come back, and then you find people being no. Let them come back to work, and we continue.
You know the thing about being a pilot, it isn't like other services that we have in government where you can be transferred to some godforsaken place.
Now those things the court has said, don't try it.
Not happening.
No.
Yes.
No. Don't do it. Don't do those things. Oh, now you're going to delay allowances because they went to court. No, stop it. Storm over plot to end term limits also is on the front page of The Nation. And another story there that we'll look into. My husband could not swim, laments the wife of crash pilot. We did see the Precision Air flight that crashed Saturday, or rather Sunday. And the wife of the pilot, who unfortunately passed, says if he had been able to swim, perhaps he would have survived.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll look at that story later as well.
By the way, the Star, same headline.
Term limits?
Yes, UDAD
This dead cat has worked.
I'm telling you nicely.
Yes, hasn't it just?
Hey!
Hasn't
If this... okay. So first of all, the Honorable Yusuf Salah Yakub, who is the MP for Fafi, was last week unknown to very many people.
Unknown?
Last week.
My friend. Unknown is putting it really very
mildly.
Yes.
He was non-existent.
Kabisa. Most people don't even know whether Fafi is in this country or whether it's in Mauritania.
Now today, he is a man who is all over the headlines.
Everyone knows him.
But why? I mean, why? Why is it such a big deal? If an MP just comes and says, I think we should amend the constitution to change the term limits.
Precisely.
Why is it a big deal?
Why is it causing such a big hoo-ha?
Yeah.
He just suggested, I am thinking, perhaps, I'm just thinking, folks.
I was sitting in my house on Sunday and I was kind of bored and I thought, you know what? Why can't we just extend this thing? And I just decided to make that suggestion to you guys. And now everybody shouting.
Yes.
No, don't reduce it to that. And the man had put some thought into it.
Yes.
He suddenly looked back and he thought, it's not about, he's looking at, do we actually get value when we have 2 terms for a president? If people are going to vote and they like the person, they vote again, they like the person, let them continue voting.
Is he a first-time MP?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
But he's not a first-time voter.
Okay.
And he'd like to continue voting for his president.
So the question about what is all the hoo-ha about, the question is, that for many people, the question is, why are you bringing this up now?
When should you have brought it?
And also, the fear or maybe the consternation with people would be, you know what? This suggestion that this fella has brought up now, the possibility of it even being regarded seems to be high. So we're trying to stomp out this fire like a rhino in the dark, because if we start to have this conversation, the possibility of it coming into the limelight is a thing, and we want to stomp it out before.
So it's getting these headlines so that we make sure that it doesn't survive. It's on the front page of storm over. It's
every major daily. It's on the front page.
Yeah, and the top news on TV and on radio. Why?
The focus is now on this subject.
Yes.
Exactly. As I keep saying, there are other things that are going on for which your attention is being diverted from. Because this is not a thing. It's not even a thing. It's not even a thing yet. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now, we're making it a thing.
It's
and there
become
are
the
other
thing.
things for which we should be paying attention to.
It is becoming the thing.
It's becoming a thing, and it's not one.
You'll tell us about the Italian Cuisine Week shortly. Let me just tell you about what's on the back page of The Nation.
Okay.
The second largest project after SGR is lined up in a deal with the UK government. A 425 billion shillings mega dam ya maji, 425 billion shillings, is likely to be Kenya's second largest infrastructure project after the SGR, will be among 6 projects to be undertaken under Kenya's and the UK's new strategic partnership, mainly targeting the agriculture and energy sectors. The partnership aims to boost climate finance in the country. The Grand High Falls Dam, to be constructed in Tana River County, will irrigate about 400,000 hectares and generate 1,000 megawatts of electricity, the two countries stated following a meeting between President William Ruto and UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. The project will be established on a public-private partnership basis, but the UK says it will take time to be completed owing to its complexity. When completed, it will be the most expensive dam ever built in Kenya. Led by the UK engineering firm GBM, the project is envisaged to include both a power purchase agreement for clean energy and a water purchase agreement for agricultural irrigation. Under the partnership that aims to fund 6 projects worth 500 billion shillings in total, the two countries have also reached a leader-level agreement on an 11.5 billion shilling project for green regeneration of Nairobi's CBD, anchored around a new central rail station connected to the bus rapid transit that will incorporate latest innovations in green building technology and planning, and on and on and on.
Kenya doesn't have a really good reputation with dams, you know that, right?
Yeah, dams.
Yeah.
The dams.
Not coming off a very good history with dams and the completion of the same.
No.
So, you know,
It's not a very good history. It's a damning history.
Well, so we're going into yet another one. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and this one is PPP.
Even
No,
the last one we are paying for something, even a contract that you don't even know how it looks
the
like.
The thing about a PPP is this. Whether we like it or not, there's some check and balance. And the likelihood of the project being completed is really high. Yes. Note, likelihood.
Likelihood of it is high.
It's very high.
Because the investor wants to finish so that then they can start.
Yes, exactly.
Recouping their investment.
Precisely.
Okay.
So the monkey business that surely
we've seen with all the others.
Yes.
From Tarkwell.
It started with Tarkwell. Okay. And it carried on with others.
Yeah.
And yet we forget that we actually do have dams in this country that actually work.
Yes.
And they do what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
So if we follow that trajectory, we would say we wait and see how this will progress. But also, the seriousness of the government in ensuring that they do the things they have said hangs in the balance here. So, is it a reputation that they want to ensure that is upheld, meaning they are the sort of people who do what they say? Or is it going to be a promise like many other promises we've heard in the past with other governments and which never get fulfilled? So
you can't help but have those questions linger in your mind, unfortunately, when you hear something like this. And that is the thing, that will it actually happen? And should it start? Will it actually be completed? Will Kenyans then be able to benefit from something? Because look, we can't run away from something like this. If it were to be completed and actually working, it would be monumental in what it would be able to do. But the questions must linger in your mind because of historical experience. The question is in your head. Oh my goodness. Will it actually finish?
I think, like City is saying, if it's a private initiative, it could get there. The thing now is to look at those contracts. Yep. The water purchase agreement, the power purchase agreement, and all those things. Yeah. How much are you selling water and to whom? In Tana River. There's vast land.
massive.
I can put a lot of land under irrigation. Who's just going to be buying water and for how much? Also, there is that railway city, which has also been talked about, and it's still being talked about. Let's wait and see. 26 minutes to 7, Kenya's biggest conversation. You'll tell us about the Italian thingy after we take this traffic break. Sawa.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The adults in the room.
He's promiscuous or he's polygamous. We need to get over ourselves.
So I should always know the man that marries me, I know there'll be other women.
Yes.
The relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of the relationships you will have with other people.
Things that we never talk about. 3 things. Stop, breathe, and relax.
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not.
Tune into Adults in the Room
Every Monday to Friday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
The adults in the room will help you stay winning. Only on 94.4 Spice FM,
Okay,
Nairobi.
Not so bad on Jogo Road today for first time in a long time. We're seeing that it's flowing freely as you get towards the stadium roundabouts and then going towards Landies. That doesn't look too bad. Look, getting into the CBD is not too difficult at this point in time. It's also not flowing too badly coming off of Thika Superhighway, and Kiambu Road looks good for now. It's moving. The expressway, looking at those exits coming out of Westlands, so you're going to slow down a little bit because there's all these madhogonyos happening. Coming in from Wayaki Way, coming in from Peponi Road, then coming in from Raptor Road, and then also from Riverside, then happening right there. You're not going to be able to get off very easily. So, yeah, that's going to take a bit of a think. Mavagonios. So, other parts of the city doesn't look too bad, at least not for now. You're going to come off of Mombasa Road and you should be fine. Uhuru Highway will clog up. It'll do it right around the Nyeri Stadium roundabouts, going out towards Haile Selassie, coming in from Gong Road. So, all those things. So, if you've not left now, you might want to think about it. And if you have, well, good on you. Let's talk in a bit. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Want to keep things moving this morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right.
What's your favorite food? Mine is Italian. Pasta, wine, vino, pecorino, all those wonderful things, So, and the fresh ingredients, basil, tomato. If you love Italian food, you're in for a treat. So it's Italian Cuisine Week, and it's back for the 7th edition this November, actually from the 10th, which is when? Tomorrow. Very good. All the way until the 17th. So Italian Cuisine Week is by the Extraordinary Italian Taste Project. And every year for the last 7 years, it's promoting Italian culinary traditions and the food and wine connoisseurship as a distinctive trait of the Italian identity and culture. So you have an opportunity to be part of this. The theme this year is sustainability and innovation, the ingredients of Italian cuisine for the health of individuals and the protection of the planet. It means a whole week of good food, delicious wine, and exciting events across the country. It's organized by the Italian Embassy in Kenya. We're going to give you more details as to how that is going to happen in different parts of the country. But think on it. Good food for a week.
Kabisa. Do you have the business daily, City?
No, it hadn't come. By the time I passed by,
the thing,
my Beebles,
it did not do the thing.
No, they hadn't. Only the Star.
Okay. What other story then are you looking at?
Actually, I was looking at something interesting here. There was a gentleman by the name of Willie Kimani, a lawyer.
Yes.
He and his client, Joseph Mwenda, and a taxi driver, Joseph Mururi, were abducted and murdered.
Yes.
This was in June 23rd, 2016. All right? In July 1st, 2016, the bodies were recovered from Oldonyo Sabuk River. This time it wasn't Yala River, Oldonyo Sabuk River.
Yeah.
July 14th, 2016, 4 police officers and a police informer were charged in court. Okay. There were 46 prosecution witnesses, 46, and 34 defense witnesses. Judge Leset analyzed 117 exhibits. On September 20th, 2021, the accused are put on their defense. July, fast forward the following year, 2022, court rules that the 4 of the 5 accused are guilty of murder. PC Leonard Mwangi was acquitted. November 11th, 2022, accused to be sentenced, which is Friday. chronology of things. This issue, 2016, we're now in 2022. You're about 6 years down the line.
Yep.
You know, the wheels of justice may move slowly, but in this case, they definitely moved. And those who are accused were found guilty. So now let's wait and hear what the sentencing will be.
Okay.
So it's this Friday?
11th November, this Friday.
Yeah.
Day after tomorrow.
Many are waiting for this to see what's going to happen.
Guilty they are.
Guilty they are.
It
Only
is the
one
level
was
of
acquitted.
punishment.
It's the level of punishment that they'll be given.
Yeah. Interesting to see. I have two stories, very interesting ones.
Okay.
For what I'm looking at, so let's see. First of all, Japheth Kome, who's the Inspector General nominee, says that he's telling us something that maybe you didn't know. That graft is rife in the police service.
Okay.
There's something else. Officers do not like their uniforms.
Okay.
Okay. He has admitted that corruption is rampant in the force or the service, whichever one you want to use for now. Officially, it's the service. Appearing before the Senate and the National Assembly Committee yesterday, he promised to address the vice once he assumes office. He said some people were giving bribes as high as 600,000 shillings to be recruited into the service, which he said perpetuated corruption as some officers seek to recover their money once they get in. You know, I'm going to give 600,000 bucks. I want to be able to get it back once I get in, right? And he says, I would like to state that 98% of police officers are professionals in their duties. However, we have a few rogue officers who are giving Kenya Police Service a bad name. He said these officers will be required to display name tags when on duty. Rather, he said all officers will be required to display name tags while on duty. He says he will engage service commanders to introduce a reward scheme for citizens who capture police officers taking bribes. So, you know. The incoming IG disclosed his net worth of 89 million shillings, invested mostly in land and farming activities that earned him 9 million shillings annually. He has served for 31 years. He's invested in shares in the police SACCO, serving vehicles, tractors, etc., etc. But the interesting thing that he then went on to say is that he was going to establish a directorate that will be headed by a senior officer in the rank of Assistant Inspector General of Police to address the mental wellness of officers because it is an issue.
Okay.
And so as to ensure that any challenges that they may be facing while on duty are addressed, and not just once, but that they will be addressed regularly, so that you will come in for a regular, update with your person, counselor, whomever it must be, and say, look, these are the things that I'm going through. So we don't have some of the things that we see where, officers in the service are shooting each other up for whatever reason. Come and have a regular conversation with us so that we can make sure your mental status is at least comfortable. He's promised to also tackle livestock rustling, and he says this has led to the loss of 50 billion shillings annually, and he says the best way to end the attacks is to deal with the masterminds and not the foot soldiers, which I thought was interesting, because then there is an admission that is the people who are fighting are not the ones behind this conflict.
Yeah.
He's defended himself against allegations of corruption or the post-election violence that he said to have been involved in. And he said that, look, the matters in this petition, he says, I have 0% responsibility whatsoever in any of that. He promised not to have Secret Service units carrying out clandestine activities and to have all unexplained... Yeah. He will not have Secret Service units carrying out clandestine activities.
Secret Service units?
Yes. Yes, no. Like the one that's just been disbanded by His Excellency the President.
Yeah, no, but Secret Service, that's NIS.
He says he's not going to have Secret Service units carrying out clandestine activities.
I'm sure he meant those units that are established.
Special units.
Service.
Those special
service units.
Maybe he meant that, but maybe the reporting is something else. But then he also said that all, not some, all unexplained deaths will be investigated. All right? Okay. That was my story number one.
Story number two?
We have diverted health money to feed starving Kenyans. This is according to His Excellency the President. So, the money that you're looking... people were complaining the other day, the money you were looking for medical, you go to hospital, you can't find this, blah, blah. Now, we've had to divert that money that we would have otherwise used for that to feed starving Kenyans. President William Ruto has said climate change has left the government with tough choices, providing food aid to populations ravaged by famine or funding critical services such as health and education. He was speaking to CNN in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, where he's attending the Conference of Parties, the 27th edition, and said the government had diverted money allocated for healthcare to food aid as the country reels from the worst drought in 40 years. He said we have to allocate funds meant for hospitals, drugs and education to be able to feed the population. For the first time in the history of our nation, we've had to feed wildlife, and it is something that we have never seen. The reality of climate change is here with us. He said he's concerned that despite the suffering of poorer nations such as Kenya, wealthier nations are reneging on their commitments at the COP, which is COP. He said he was encouraged that loss and damage funding was on the agenda, and he called this a step in the right direction. So he was saying this in his interview, whereby he was saying, look, we are having to suffer this thing because of what you guys have done. And now basic provisions that I should be able to make in the country for health and education, which are rights of my people, I cannot do that. And I have to feed starving people, and I have to take away from what I would use to send my children to school, my children being Kenya's children,
right,
to school, and then fund the hospitals. Because now I have to divert that money to feed starving Kenyans. And this is because you people have reneged on your responsibility. Stop it. He's annoyed.
Walk the talk. Yeah, I mean, people can't just behave as if they don't know how they should be behaving.
Like this and like that.
Yeah, like they did not know. But yeah. They just keep on coming and talking to us as if we don't know what they're supposed to be saying. And so what else is happening in Sharm el-Sheikh? There's a lot that's happening, right? The president was there yesterday. He was attending this session that he was attending. Let me just tell you about it. It's I'm looking for the tweets from State House Kenya before we bring in Karo Kimutai to tell us more about what was happening yesterday. Mobilizing resources for water program is dependent on goodwill. That's what the president said, that the success in mobilizing resources for the Continental Africa Water Investment Program is dependent on political goodwill. He said the program, which seeks to close the existing water investment gap in the continent, must demonstrate robust governance to attract investment. It must be intentional and directed to the purpose of solving fundamental water challenges across the continent. He was explaining that water users, regulators and providers must routinely engage in problem solving. This is one session that was taking place in Sharm el-Sheikh, and where they were discussing about water, access to water, in addition to discussing everything else that they're talking about. All right, so what is the role of the polluter in coming? There are even people in Sharm el-Sheikh who have started talking about, can we get reparations?
Yeah. You people have destroyed our environment.
Can we get reparations? Yeah. How far is that going? Well, it's not a small conversation. Let's bring in Standard Group's digital editor, Carol Kimutai, who is in Egypt. Good morning, Carol. No way. Imagine we can't hear you. Try now.
Good morning.
Yes, that's better. Good morning. Yes, we can hear you now.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Good. Greetings from Sharm el-Sheikh.
Good morning, Carol.
Good morning.
You must be having a good time there, Carol. So, give us an update of the meetings and the deliberations so far. What's been happening there?
So today would be the third day, because we started out on Sunday. So it's third or fourth day. So far, we've just had lots of conversations around several things. I heard you talking about the president. He has been here for the last 2 days. Very interesting conversations. He's the chair of the Africa. He represented the Africa Group of Negotiators. Kenya is the chair. So he gave a statement on Monday and the position of Africa. And I'll start with that and say that there are several demands that Africa has put on the table. This COP is being referred to as the African COP, being in Egypt. So there's a lot of conversations around Africa and the fact that despite us being the least contributors to carbon emissions, we are among the countries that are suffering the most from climate change. So one of the things that has been put on the table is for Africa to be considered under special circumstances. This means, of course, we are the least emitters to carbon, yet we are suffering the most. We have parts of East Africa that is suffering from drought. You're aware about what's going on and the animals that have died, the lack of food and the efforts that governments are doing to feed citizens in East Africa. West Africa is going through floods. South Africa recently in KwaZulu-Natal had a very big flood episode. So you can imagine the situation that's going on in Africa. And of course, this comes shortly after we've had COVID-19. And the other thing that is being discussed is the debts that we have. So really, if you look at Africa, we are very, very vulnerable. So that's being put on the table. The issue of loss and damage is one that we saw for the very first time is on the agenda of COP27. So that is already one of the very contentious issues. People are waiting to see whether the developed world will actually commit to paying for their sins.
Sure, Carol. I mean, I hear you on that. And I think that, look, this is the 27th Conference of Parties. And I think more and more we've heard the agitation that has come from those who contribute the least, but then who bear the heaviest responsibility on their shoulders. And the agitation has gotten louder. It has gotten stronger. But are we actually seeing at this particular COP that it's like, all guards down, and there is an actual open demand for those countries that contribute the most to, climate damage actually doing something about it? Do you think that we will see a turnaround from this particular COP, or is it just another conference of cacophony?
Now, for the first time, Africa is speaking as one, which is good news. So they've come to COP as one, not as separate small countries. So already that's a step in the right direction. Number two is, yes, the developed world is recognizing that if they actually don't discuss this issue of loss and damage, the countries that they've lent money to will not even pay. They'll default on that money. So it's a very, very important conversation that must be had. But the chairman of the presidency of COP27 has actually managed our expectations. And he said he hopes that after this, there will be gradual discussion on loss and damage. So I don't expect them to say yes in the first, at least not in this COP, but certainly there will be gradual discussion now that it's on the agenda. We hope to see the US, EU actually now saying, okay, fine, yes, we have contributed the most, but this is what we want done. In COP26, there was a heated debate around whether to put loss and damage financing fund. That was never actually agreed upon. So we hope that in this COP that will be agreed upon. And actually there will be countries who will actually say that this is what you're actually putting into the fund to help countries that are suffering to adopt and mitigate the effects of climate change.
Okay, so I mean, COP ends in a few days, and that's for sure. The thing is that usually it's the conversation where we come around and say, this is the world speaking. What's likely to be the actions that come out of this conference? And again, I think the world sits back and says, well, look, everybody's going to a fancy, swanky resort in Egypt to have a few days of, hotel stay and per diem. But are we going to come out? Because are you going to come back to Kenya, for example, and then be able to deal with, the results of climate change? Are you going to go back to South Africa? Are you going to go back to Nigeria, where the floods are still ravaging the country? What is expected to be the next step towards this, and not wait for COP28?
So yesterday, the COP27 presidency actually released 30 outcomes that they hope to see at the end of COP27. And these are 30 outcomes around adaptation of climate change. We have agriculture, we have food security. So there are very, very many areas that they have said these are the areas that we want the outcomes. And they will form a committee who will follow up so that there is a report tabled in COP28 that will actually be in UAE, Emirati. So that's for me a positive thing, that there's deliberate efforts to have the COP convening teams actually follow through on commitments, especially on adaptation. Yesterday, the EU actually says they're going to roll out a program of early warning across Africa, which for me is another plus, helping governments with information early enough for them to start preparation for floods and drought. Now, that will come down to individual countries, because we know in Kenya, this is the fourth severe drought that we've had in 40 years. And this is something that the president actually really emphasized in all the sessions that he attended. He actually mentioned that. The question is, are we really learning from these effects? Are we preparing early enough? This is not the first time we are seeing cattle dying. This is not the first time we have had to see the wildlife suffer from drought. My question and challenge would be to individual countries who actually send their representatives to this COP year in, year out. What do they learn? How do they actually go back home and do and move policies? One of the issues that came out during the media briefing with the president for Kenyan media is for him to tell us what Kenya has come out of from COP27. He said they've signed several agreements that are totaling to around 30 billion USD. That's about 3 trillion Kenya shillings. And he said it's in the area of green energy, hydro energy, and solar. And activities that will actually help Kenya be green by 2030. And he hopes that by 2030 will be a net exporter of green energy. One of the things that he didn't answer that I specifically asked him is how he's going to help in bringing down the cost of solar panels, because we know how expensive it is. And this is because of tax. We have batteries that are actually very expensive to import. That's part of green energy. So we hope that the government will actually take some of these things seriously, so that we also start having homes have a lot of solar panels which are affordable.
Garo Kimutai, we thank you very much for that update, and we hope to be catching up with you again in coming days as COP27 continues.
Thank you very much, Eric. Today is Finance Day. So, of course, today we are going to talk about climate financing. That will be very interesting to follow. Thank you and have a nice morning.
You too. Looking forward for more updates. Garo Kimutai, the digital editor at Standard Group, speaking to us from Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt on the sidelines of COP27. Other stories in the papers, hoteliers are unhappy.
Why?
Because the government wants to cut costs. So the National Treasury has asked government ministries, state departments and agencies to revise their budgets downwards in line with the president's directive to shave off 300 billion shillings from the current financial year's budget. Guess who's affected? Hotels, because of meetings.
Conferencing.
Kakamega County Hoteliers Association Chairman William Owuya says the austerity measures will hurt the hotel industry, which relies on hosting national and county government events. He is arguing that the order by the PS would affect investments and contravene the president's call of promotion of small and micro enterprises. How do you ban meetings, trainings and lunch from being taken to hotels and expect the economy to grow? He was wondering. You see, he was responding to a memo by the Treasury's PS, Julius Muya, who told all these state departments, you know what, people, have meetings in your offices. He also directed the suspension of purchase of computers and ICT materials and froze workshops and retreats, except in exceptional circumstances. All directorates, departments and units are requested to comply to ensure no commitments are made without supporting funding. Okay? Now hotels are like, surely now. Now surely. Sasa ni nini? Kwa nini sisi ndio tunakula 300 billion peke yetu? Anyway, keep it here for more. In the next hour, we talk about funding universities. Is the amount that universities are getting from the government enough? Are the universities well positioned to actually generate more revenue on themselves? That's a conversation that we'll be having in this hour. Onesmus Mutio is the National Organizing Secretary of the University's Academic Staff Union, UWASU. He joins us in the next hour. Good morning. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Now, operations at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport are expected to resume today if pilots comply with the court order asking them to return to work. Employment and Labor Relations Court Judge Ann Moure had asked the pilots to return to work from 6 a.m. this morning.
The respondent members, and especially the Kenya Airways pilots, will resume their duties as pilots by 6 a.m. on 9th November 2022 unconditionally.
We continue to follow up to see what is developing at the JKIA. Meanwhile, in addition, the KQ had been asked to desist from implementing legal action against the pilots until the case presented is heard and determined. Also, the Union of Pilots, CALPA, has until Friday this week to respond to the matter.
The applicants take you to allow the pilots to perform their duties without harassing them or intimidating them, and especially by not taking any disciplinary action against any of them pending the hearing and determination of these suits. 3, the respondents are given until Friday, 11th November 2022 to file their reply to the applications dated 28th November 2022 and application dated 6th November 2022 and serve the applicants accordingly.
Kenya Airways is similarly expected to submit its response in court by the 15th of this month. The case will be mentioned on the 22nd of this month.
Upon service, the applicants will file their written submissions of 10 pages by 15th November 2022, and the respondents will also file their submissions by 17th November 2022, that is 10 pages. The case will be mentioned on 21st of November 2022 to confirm compliance and to give a date for ruling.
Meanwhile, Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen has now called on the striking Kenya Airways pilots to adhere to the court ruling and resume work as directed. In a statement, the CS welcomed the decision by the Employment and Labor Relations Court, which ordered all pilots to call off the industrial action and resume work today. Murkomen at the same time urged the airline not to victimize the workers who participated in the 4-day industrial action. As earlier stated, we are following up on the developments from JKIA and we'll be bringing you the very latest in our subsequent news bulletin now. Trade CS Moses Kuria's vow to evict quarters on the East Africa Portland cement factory land immediately. Speaking at an event where the factory launched a type of cement called Green Triangle Cement aimed at reducing environmental pollution, Kuria raised an issue with the factory's activities, it says, have continued to be crippled despite having large tracts of land that he claims has been invaded by squatters. Kuria hinted that he is planning to build a cargo airport on the piece of land and warned that he will soon send officers from the NYS to evict their squatters.
East African Portland will be the best cement factory, the best cement company, and also the best cargo hub in East and Central Africa. Yeah? But for me to do that, we have a small problem. When I'm trying to think about a cargo city that we want to develop right here, when I'm trying to right here on your neighborhood, I'm trying to come up with a modern engineering center for the numerical machines company. Both NMC, which falls within my ministry, and East African Portland, you have been devoured by the same problem, the problem of squatters.
In September, the EAPC started selling the 709 acres of land to the squatters in a plan where they will pay gradually over the next 3 years. However, it is uncertain whether the program will continue as planned following the threat from Minister Moses Kuria. and the government has allocated 50 billion shillings to public universities and another 15.8 billion shillings to help. Education CS Ezekiel Machogu further defended himself about claims that the government will stop funding universities, saying he was misquoted.
Nobody ever said, I repeat it here, that university funds are going to be done away with. No. I think it's better we get the entire story. What we said is yes, government is supporting universities, and the government will be able to continue supporting universities through capitation and even infrastructural funds that the government does support universities each and every year.
Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu saying that the government will continue funding universities. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, so Wednesday doesn't look like too bad a day with traffic coming off a thicker superhighway. You should be getting into the city without too much of an issue at all. It's going to clog up just between Survey and then Pangani, but thereafter it should be all right. Coming off of Kiambu Road, we're looking at it getting heavy towards the DCI headquarters and then out towards Mavaiga Square, so you watch out for that. James Gishuru also packing up. Inbound traffic is doing a number on Waiaki Way this morning, and we're going to come in from Limuru Road, Gigiri, going out then towards Roslyn and other parts, actually pretty busy. So we'll keep an eye on it. What's going on where you are? SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
7 minutes after 7. Good morning and welcome to Wednesday. If you're just joining us, we are live on SpiceFM, on KTN Home and online. This is the Situation Room, the show that tells you all about this new swanky gadgets from Samsung, the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, the Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro, and what CT is holding, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra. What's that, CT?
This is a tablet, My idea of a tablet was never really quite this, because this really actually is a fully fledged computer. Call it a tablet, but that's what it is.
Oh, yours was the other one.
Tablet
No. I wasn't thinking about the pharmaceutical product.
You're going to have to Moses.
Yeah, you're going to Moses.
It's called Moses.
The idea of a tablet was something that could more or less fit in your pocket. The Tab S8 Ultra doesn't quite fit in your pocket, but it's small enough to carry around. Now, what is interesting
looks light.
No, it's not only just light, my friend. It's very portable. But what is interesting, it's easy to carry around. The screen itself is something to behold, 14.6 inches. Okay. Now, it has something even more interesting. It has what you call a shield strength. Okay. And it has a new armor aluminium, meaning this cover. The screen cover new. Resistant to damage. Meaning, I'm not saying you take a sledgehammer and clobber it with. No. That's not the test. But it's not just suddenly going to shatter to pieces should it just slip and fall down. Okay? Now, big enough screen for you to work on. Able to do literally everything that your computer can do. But of more interest, my friend, is the length of time this particular charge can last you.
So the battery, how long does the battery charge?
Days.
Wow.
3 days.
In use?
Yes.
Wow.
3 days.
Yes, my friend.
What do you say day in Luo?
Day. And one of the things that it does, without charging 3 days, 1, 2, 3, a dick.
A dick is 3.
Achel ario a dick.
Achel ario a dick.
3.
Day?
Yes.
What's day?
What's day?
A day.
Day in Kiluo.
Any siku.
Sema siku tatu in Kijaluo.
Ndalo, a dick. Ndalo is a day, the days.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ndalo a dick.
Ndalo a dick. Yes. But of interest, it also comes something called an S Pen. Now, S Pen enables you, forget just the typing, you can actually write on the screen and you will be writing what is supposed to. If you are given towards artistry and caricature and drawing, that S Pen does the same thing for you. But of even greater interest, this tablet has the capacity to translate what you've written into print form. You know that squiggly handwriting of yours? That squiggly, it does a thing for you. Yes.
So it's a beautiful thing.
No,
for
it's one of these things you
notes.
call a no-joke tablet. Doesn't joke around.
Okay. Yeah.
Does stuff for you.
Abu use the tablet to give us today's proverb.
Well, today's proverb, according to the tablet now, will you allow me to thingy-majig a little bit?
Okay.
Let me thingy-majig a little bit. Connect. Right? Count up to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Right, that is good enough.
9.
He who begins a conversation does not see the end. He who begins a conversation
does not see the end.
Yes. That's what the proverb says.
This one of today is throwing me completely off. I'm like, he who begins a conversation does not see the end. I'm trying to think, what exactly were they trying to communicate, or are they trying to communicate? The people from?
Conversation begins, yes, talk, yes, but it also sets in motion something else. Because there'll be a recipient of that particular talk, of that communication. Now, whatever it sets forth, whatever it begins, sometimes one doesn't quite, one isn't there to see the culmination of it. Okay? I am thinking more, for instance, in the things that parents tell their children when they're growing up. Whether it's word of encouragement, or you damn your children by telling them how useless they are, forgetting that you're your children. So if there's any element of uselessness, guess what? Where that came from. Now, the consequences of those words, whether they are of encouragement or damning the child, the parent may not necessarily see the consequences of it. The parent may not necessarily see the benefits of it, if there are benefits, or if there's damage, one doesn't quite see it. So,
you began a conversation?
Yes, but the consequences, long, medium term, long term, one doesn't quite necessarily see it. But it's always there. That's the point.
So do you think the import of the proverb is to encourage you, just start a conversation and walk away, let it gain a life of its own and don't necessarily look for the end? Or is it telling you, be cautious of the conversations that you start?
Well, you know the thing about saying something, sometimes our languages on this continent, saying and doing can mean the same thing, okay? So think of tenda wema. Nenda zako. Again, so it would fit in. The beauty of Proverbs is that the interpretations, my friend, are as broad as your imagination can be.
All over?
Yes. Okay. So long as there's some logic to it and it makes sense, yes. It will be an interpretation.
Okay.
This is an exam where only one shoe fits all. No.
All right. So let's jump into our conversation, which is about universities. And yes, there have been a lot of furore. There's been some serious furore over words that were attributed to the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Ezekiel Machogu. And this is with regards to funding of the universities. And yesterday he came out to clarify and said, no. I did not say that the government is going to stop funding universities and sending capitation money to universities. This is what he said yesterday. Nobody is interfering with the money. All the funds for education are being ring-fenced. Nobody ever said that university funds are going to be done away with. Government is supporting universities and will continue to support them through capitation and infrastructural funds. Government will never stop funding universities. He said, on Tuesday at the Kiambu Institute of Science and Technology when he officiated a groundbreaking ceremony for a mechatronics workshop. He continued, the government has allocated capitation of 50 billion shillings for university education, 15.8 billion shillings to the Higher Education Loans Board. I also want to assure the public that the government will continue to support university education through regular exchequer support, as well as building their capacity to raise more resources through other revenue streams. Public universities have a cumulative debt of 56.1 billion shillings owed to various entities and individuals. On Saturday, the same CS was on a tour of the Dedan Kimathi University of Technology. He was reported to have said, I'm going to move around each and every university in Kenya because a number of our universities are faced with problems, particularly finance. You get them complaining about underfunding, and we are encouraging that they must generate their own revenue because the exchequer, as it is now, isn't going to be able to continue funding more because in Kenya, education takes 25.9% of the national budget. So we have to find other ways of creating and generating revenue for universities, and they have to look for other revenue streams. Okay. If you just think about what he said on Saturday, had he said the government is going to stop funding universities?
He didn't say they will stop. He said the exchequer cannot continue to fund in the way in which it has been.
No, he said the exchequer is not going to be able to continue funding more.
So
not anymore.
More than it already is.
Yes.
And the demand on the exchequer is for more. Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
The demand is, okay, so now we are heavily in debt. Mm-hmm. We are basically in financial problems. Can we get some more? Mm-hmm. He says, hey, boss, more? 25.9% already comes to universities. Mm-hmm. Right now, the exchequer cannot afford to give you more.
Okay. Now, what did he say yesterday?
He said, nobody is taking away the money that comes to universities. Mm-hmm. That money is ring-fenced. Mm-hmm. It's a percentage, it's a certain amount. It comes to universities that shall continue going to universities.
Okay. This makes sense to me. I think the call here, as is the call on many, is to say, look, you have to start thinking of ways in which you can fund this more, that you would come to the government to say what we have is not enough. Whether it is that we are going to award scholarship, whether it is that there are certain needs that we need to fill in order to keep the university fees low. Because we do know that for the longest time, until we saw about 12 months ago, when we saw this double increase of university fees at public universities, right? Because then there was the University of Nairobi, and then pretty much everybody followed suit. All right. So essentially what he's saying is that you must now start to think of income generating activities that would allow you to cover for this more, because the more, the government just does not have it. The exchequer is not going to be able to fill the gap for the more. I personally don't see a problem with that.
Should the government... Okay.
I don't see a problem.
Here's the thing. Currently, universities have a problem with just managing their costs.
Thank you very much. Now, is that the exchequer's fault or issue?
Well, to some extent, yeah. See, they're the ones who are now doing this whole 100% transition.
Let us try and think of the universities as entities unto themselves alone, without government,
without the baby, without the big brother,
just
or father.
On its own. So you have been given your 1 talent or your 5 talents, and then you must manage it on your own. Are we saying that these stories that we have heard of remittance of monies towards taxes, of mismanagement at university level, of not being able to do with the money that you have, this mismanagement, to whom will it be attributed? The individual institutions, or are we saying that there is a hand of government in these problems that they have been facing? Because we do know that a number of public institutions, universities, have had this issue. When you want to look at Moi University, Professor Kiyama told us about some of the problems that they had at the University of Nairobi. These issues of management, does it come because there's not enough to go around? They've just not been able to tie enough ribbon around this thing? Or has it then been a management issue? Government is saying, if you need more, we are not going to be able to fund that, because we just don't have it.
Think of other ways in which you can raise money.
Which you can raise money. Are there ways in which you can do that? This heavy reliance on government to be able to fulfill every need that you would have as a public institution, do we need to start looking at it as days gone by and start to think of ways in which you can do this for yourself? I do not think that this is something that he's asking that is out of, in another in another galaxy.
And remember what Professor Kiama then told us, that if we actually now start talking about, so the government has been sending some capitation money for students who are in university and also sending money to the Higher Education Loans Board. If we talk about us actually looking at how much it costs us to train, let's say, a doctor, an engineer, go all the way into somebody who's taking an education course, and the other, if you look at how much it actually costs, if we went to start charging the fees as per the cost, then we'll have an issue. Because that's a conversation that they've started having. Okay, can we now look at how much is it costing us to train a doctor who is in the university doing the Bachelor of Surgery and for 6 years? How much is it costing us? How much has the government been subsidizing?
So can we put that on those who are coming to learn?
Yeah, can we up the fees that we are collecting from people? When they started that, everybody else was up in arms. University should not be that expensive. So what's the catch? How do you balance this thing out? How do the universities balance this thing out? How do they actually get to know, all right, so this is the problem that we are facing. These are the possible areas where we can raise money. One of them is, of course, raising the school fees. So everybody who's coming to the university, you are paying slightly higher than you've been paying. Is it possible? Can we look at, say, this course costs this much. So if you're coming to take this course, this is the fee that you pay. There are other courses that will not cost as much. So those that don't cost much, the fees may not rise by much. Those that cost much, the fees will rise, commensurate with what is expected to actually train somebody. City.
You know, the idea of funding education, the model that we've had for the longest time, worked well because this was an elite process when you had just one university, but the supporting benefit was that you didn't need to necessarily go to university to have a career. When you have a population where the numbers are few and the jobs come a begging, now that was such a long time ago that when you look at the present, it looks like it's a pipe dream and something that actually never happened. So how was the thinking about funding universities and ensuring that they function? How has it evolved? Because universities don't just get money from tuition. Yes, the government gives them money. But what about grants? Do our universities focus on research? Do they, given all the departments we have, you know, this is a pet subject of mine. Very well. Yes, I see you grinning. Do they focus on training and teaching the students to understand the need to further knowledge by actually conducting research, looking for grants so that you can actually conduct research? Because it is one other way of bringing money into the universities. Now, many universities around the world also get, what you say, endowments. There are people who give them gifts, people who give them money, their foundations, former students, etc., etc., etc. Now, it's not a model that we're unfamiliar with. Look at how the alumni of our secondary schools go about helping their schools. Some of the more prominent schools that have lived or who have been in existence longer benefit because they've had students for a longer time. And because of that, they have students who perhaps are able to garner the resources they have and the body of the alumni to do certain things. The idea of generating income is an excellent one, but there has to be a roadmap. And part of it has to be part and parcel of how it is we train and teach our students so that they understand.
You're right, CT, there has to be a roadmap. But if you look at these, if you want to use other universities around the world as examples, the ones you talk of that are research centers, that are training centers, where did they start from? They started from a pool of resources that came from tuition that was charged on students, like what you're talking about. It was an expensive affair, whichever way you want to look at it. Indeed, there was government subsidy for those who could not pay, but the bulk of the resources that most institutions have started with has come from tuition that students have paid.
Yes.
It has.
Yes.
Now, how they managed it thereafter is what either was their success or their downfall. How you manage this pool of resources that you had. Did you take these resources and then find a way to be able to multiply them? Did you make your institution a research center, for example? Did you take this institution and say, what other things can we do? There are universities in this country today who have certain things that others don't have. Are you a technology hub, for example? Are you an agricultural hub? What are you doing with the proceeds that could possibly come from that? And I think these are the things that are being asked. That which you have, how then are you able to multiply it for it to then become something that you can use for the future? The reliance on government funding, unfortunately, has probably become just too heavy. Until, if you ask me, you cannot see the opportunities that lie just in front of your nose. And maybe it is a good thing to remove this pacifier from the mouth. It's going to force you to chew at some point.
Remember, when you talk of student loans, anyone who studied abroad will understand that the bane of most people who actually are students in universities is this thing called students' loan or university loan. You will get it, but you have to pay for it. And you pay for it over a long period of time. Now, we have a system, and unfortunately, that system is government funded and it runs out of money. When it runs out of money, then there's a limit to how much it can actually sponsor. Now, I cannot claim to be an expert in this field, but what I know is this. If the minds are set to finding a solution to this problem, as opposed to wallowing in the miasma of talking about the problems we have, which everyone knows, a solution can be found. And probably solutions have been suggested, but the question is, those who are in the position to actually implement the solution, do they listen? Are they willing to take those solutions to heart? Are they willing to make the moves that will actually bring about the desired change?
It will take quite a bit to get there. Onesmus Mutio is joining us now. He is the National Organizing Secretary of the University's Academic Staff Union. Onesmus, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much for joining us. Paul Sana, you got late. Issues with crossing over in traffic this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
It's good that you're here. Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room. You found us, of course, in the middle of this conversation, and you're aware of what's been happening to universities across the country. In fact, you'd be in a better position to actually tell us, paint for us the picture. How are public universities faring today as we speak financially?
Thank you. I think one of the greatest challenges in the public universities today is the financial crisis. Not almost, all public universities are facing this financial crisis. They are in deep debts, and unfortunately they are sinking into debt every single month because they have financial obligations that they cannot meet, and therefore every month they are still sinking deeper and deeper into the financial crisis. If this is not resolved, then our fear is that we might be forced to close some of the public universities.
What's causing this financial crisis?
Well, I think the underfunding from the government could be the main cause of these financial problems. Now, apparently, the government does not fully fund the universities. The financing model, which is the differentiated unit cost, is being funded at around 40%. The proposal is that it should be the government should fund at least 80% of the differentiated unit cost, so that the internal the finances that the universities generate internally could now meet the 20%. But unfortunately, the government has only been funding 40%. What that means is that the government capitation that comes to the public universities sometimes is only enough to pay the net salary. For example, you might find there are certain university, their monthly wage bill, it could be 100 million. But what they get from the government is 80 million. Now, that means that they can only pay partially the salary, It means, therefore, that they cannot pay statutory deductions like KRA. We have the third-party deductions like the pension components, the bank loans, and the bank deductions that the check of their members take from the banks. And therefore, what they get only goes to pay the net salary of the members. So how do they pay suppliers? How do they pay other parties that needs to be paid? And because of that, then it means every month the universities are sinking into debts. Much to that, there is also what we call the understaffing the universities. The lecturers cannot teach do all the workload, and therefore the universities will survive in what we call the part-time lecturing. So you come, get some classes, you teach and you're paid. But these lecturers are not being paid. In fact, as we speak, I know of some universities that have not paid part-time lecturers since 2018.
Wow.
And therefore you're only coming to teach, but they will not pay at the end of the month. And therefore that also continues to make universities sink into debts every month.
I want us to just get straight into understanding exactly what this, differentiated unit cost is, understanding why is it that universities then, their operating costs have gone so high. Has it always been the same, or can you paint us a picture over the last 30 years? But let's talk about this after we take a quick break. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, reminding you about what we are selling in terms of olive real estate. Naserian Ridge Phase 3, a gated community just 4 kilometers from the SGR substation in Nachu. And we are saying that because you are listening to SpiceFM and you follow Jimmy Gathu live on Saturdays, they're organizing a site visit on the 19th of November to go to this particular piece of land. And if you purchase and say that you actually listened to Jimmy Gathu live and you'd like to make a booking where a 50 by 100 plot is going for 650,000 shillings, you'll get a 20,000 shillings discount. This is The Situation Room. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly with Onesmus Mutio, who is the National Organizing Secretary of the Universities Academic Staff Union, talking about government funding and universities and colleges. What's enough? What more is required? Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Enjoy Black November with Cold Stone Creamery Kenya. Get 2 Gotta Have It cups and 2 cake slices at only 1,500 Kenya shillings, and other amazing deals for you and your friends this November. Visit any of our stores in Nairobi or Mombasa and enjoy creamy, smooth ice cream and deliciously crafted ice cream cakes. Ice cream is always a great idea.
London Mulwa DJ Absolute. When the gang is together.
Got the sugar, got the spice.
Yorada.
Yes.
I have missed you like hot hamburgers. Yeah?
Like hot hamburgers.
Bad boys give more money than you can count.
Hey, bad boys give more money than you can count. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock, but if I were you, I'd tune in to
Sugar and Spice only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Speaking through those clouds in Nairobi, we'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16 today. It's 15 and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 24 in Nyeri, where it's 15 at the moment. 15 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 13. 26 and raining in Mombasa, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 30 as well in a partly sunny Malindi now. 21 and mostly cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 29, and 28 will be the high in a sunny Kakamega, and it's mostly sunny in Kampala at 20, going to highs of 27. We'll see highs of 30 in Dar es Salaam, where it's raining at 26, and it's 15 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Mostly clear conditions of 25 today in Lagos, and that will be today's low, going to highs of 32. We'll see lows of 23 in Kinshasa, where it's partly cloudy at 23, going to highs of 30.
Spice up your life.
Today has been fantastic in terms of traffic. Well, up until now, we are getting closer and closer to traffic hour, coming around to that 7:30 mark. There's something going on Likoni Road today. It's connecting with the what's this? Exchange. Thank you. Exchange going towards the southern bypass, coming off Mombasa Road. Not quite sure what's causing that heavy traffic. It's coming off Enterprise, which is coming off Lunga Lunga. It's very heavy as you're getting now towards that southern bypass interchange. If there's something going on there, please give us a shout so that we can warn people. Well, now, if you don't have to go in that direction, you might want to use another route to get onto Mombasa Road. Langat Road not looking too bad. It has started to pile up earlier. Let's look at that whole nexus then between the City Mortuary roundabout, Rilo Dinga Way, going out then towards Community and Valley Road. You're going to have a bit of a hold up there. Coming out of Westlands doesn't look too bad. James Gishiro piling up. Coming off Thika Superhighway, quite some traffic. Use your service lanes. There's a word of advice for Wednesday. Let's talk SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Right, 25 to 8. Conversation continues with Onesmus Mutio, the National Organizing Secretary of the Universities Academic Staff Union. We are talking about funding universities. The Education CS, Ezekiel Machogu, has clarified. He did not say that the government is going to stop funding universities. He only said that the government will not be able to afford funding, putting more money in addition to what it's currently paying and funding for funding universities. So that's what you were explaining to us where the money goes. There's this thing that you call the differentiated unit cost. Explain easily and what does it mean and how does it work out in universities?
Thank you. Well, when you talk about the differentiated unit cost, what we are talking about is what will be the cost of training a certain field. So if we are offering a certain course, we want to look at how much is it going to cost to train that specific person in that field, in terms of the resources, paying the money that is going to pay the trainers, that is the lecturers, the resources that are required. You realize that it will cost differently training, teaching different courses depending on the courses that we're talking about. And therefore, we want to see for a specific course, how much is that one going to cost? You realize that, for example, a certain course will require, say, probably 100,000. So we say that because these courses are taking 100,000 to train, can the government fund 80% of that 100 and let the universities fund the 20%? So when we say that the government is funding 40% of the differentiated unit cost, what you're saying is that the total cost that is required to train or to teach a certain course, the government is only paying 40% of that. And the university is now forced to generate their own income or to look for other sources of income to cater for the 60%. And what we're saying is that for now, the public universities are not able to do that. And that is where the genesis of the underfunding is coming from.
So in the 40%, this is the capitation that's coming directly from the government to the university.
Yes.
Where does the fee that the student is paying go? How much does it contribute?
Well, thank you. You realize that the fees that is being paid in public university, I think, is the lowest in the education sector. It is the same fees that have been paid over 20 years when some of us were still undergraduate students. And for one or two reasons, the government has not been able to increase that, although there's been proposals from the education sectors to increase that, that fees. So our students pay only 16,000 per year. And therefore, when you get that, that is where now we are saying that the university has to generate their own income. And therefore, the 60% now comes from the fees that students are paying. And because that is not enough, it's not able to cater for the 60%. In fact, the proposal has been that the government could allow the university to charge 48,000, which will, of course will also be lower, but that will be at least fairer. So should the government
raise it from the current 16,000 to 48,000 as school fees per student per year?
Per academic year. And if the government allows that, then that could also be a way to increase the, to overcome these financial challenges. The public universities have two ways to raise finance. There's the government capitation that comes, and then there's the internally generated income. That is generated now from the school fees. Some of them have enterprises, some universities have hospitals, others have other, enterprises that generate funds. So the university will take what they have generated internally and what they're getting from the government so that they can meet their budgets.
Okay. Now, it seems as though, well, it doesn't seem, it's very clear that there is a heavy reliance on government intervention to run universities. They are public, we understand that, so that means obviously that there will be government participation and activity. However, the trend has been very clear, just as you've said, even if you want to take the last 10 years, the trend has been clear that it is not enough to run the operations of public institutions. Why does it seem impossible for these internally generating activities to then increase in number and also increase in scope?
Well, I think the key challenge is, of course, we are calling them public. And because they are government institutions, whatever steps that they are taking must be regulated by the government. For example, you might find a university that has a very big land. And maybe they could also build hostels that they could also rent to students so that the students can pay money. But the private government partnership must be approved by the government. So if we are seated here, we are the manager of a university, and as the university management board, we make up a proposal that we need to set up a certain enterprise that is going to generate money. The same has to get approval from the government. And in many cases, this does not see the light of the day because of so many other things that are coming. Another issue is, of course, about the students, how much they are paying and all this. So most of these, in a way, must also be regulated by the government, which would be very different if you're talking about a private university, because we just decide to do something, and tomorrow it happens.
Implement it.
Yes. So some of them they are the challenges that they face in trying to approve this. I know of a certain university that had so many proposals and lies in the government for so many years before they approved, before they can come up with those enterprises or ways that they can generate their money. And I think another trend is that this government funding has been reduced almost every year. The government is reducing and reducing and reducing, but the universities are increasing day by day. So you find that the basket is increasing, but then the people that are feeding from the same basket are increasing day by day.
Okay, so please help us understand. So if a public institution today said that they had a new perspective on some internal generating activity, Ministry of Education obviously is the vanguard of public universities. So this project would have to go through the ministry and then would have to seek approvals, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
So as those approvals are then sought, if it is a yes, you go. If it is a no, then you don't. Obviously, if it is a no, that means that you're left with the same basket of funding to do the many things that you would need to do. And obviously that means that there's then more reliance then again on said government to be able to get those funds that are needed. Now, today's world right now, the CS is saying we must have other activities upon that will bring in funds upon which you can rely. This government funding is just not going to cut it, right? So let's assume that in his statement, there is also the realization that these processes must pass through the same government, right? If that understanding is at the fore, today, would you say that public universities are then ready to bring, because maybe there have been many ideas, we can make money here, we can make money here. Would they be ready to bring these ideas before government today and say, this is what we would like to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to increase the money in our basket to allow us to do the work that we need to do? Would universities be ready today to present those?
I will think that the answer to that will be yes. And I want to assure you, it's not that the public universities are just sitting there and watching as they sink into debt. Every university management has been sitting down and coming up with the proposals. What do we need to do? But again, as I say, when they come up with those proposals, there are those processes of approval that they must go through. For example, a good example is increasing the school fees that I was just discussing. So should that be allowed, then I can assure you that most of these challenges will not be there. But the government is not going to allow that.
Why?
Because it will also generate a lot of political heat. You know, that's not a statement that the political people are just going to take, for kindly, because then you can imagine, the pressure that is going to generate when you increase the school fees for the universities. And because of that, I can assure you, I think every year, every VC will sit with the members of the University Management Board. They will also bring in other stakeholders. They will come up with ideas. What do you want to do? But again, those ideas have to go through long processes in the government. I have a colleague and I have people that, for example, they attract research funds. But if, for example, as Dr. Mutio attracting research funds, it will take a process before the government allows me to access that money. So even when we talk about attracting research fund, in fact, I had a colleague who just give up his money. You attract some research fund, but because of, the processes that are there, sometimes you give up and you say, wow, let it stay.
What's the process?
Well, of course, you have to submit those the documents to the government through the VC. They also have to link with whoever is whoever is funding that project. What institution? Our EBAs on the other side also need to study a lot about that. So the governments must be very sure on who is funding that research, what is the interest and all that, and they also need to get the approval from that side. And I think sometimes these approvals are not very, very necessary. So even as we say that we can give, free hand to the universities to come up with ideas to generate money, still the government comes in to put a lot of, challenges that is not going to be as free as we may think.
Dr. Mutio, I want to ask you several things, but this matter that you raise is an important one. Are we saying that these public universities do not have a grants office or a structure and a system that actually has a way in which they manage grants that come into the country through the universities to fund projects within the country?
Well, those some universities might have, but I want to assure you it is not that easy. I have been involved in a partnership with a certain university in a certain country. And these universities was willing to partner with us and, to assist us in so many ways, to start programs, to do this, to bring infrastructure. But that did not see the light of the day. We had to give up.
Why?
Of course, as I say, because there are so many offices that must approve that.
So it's government bureaucracy?
Yes, if we may say.
So what discouraged you was the time it was going to take, not the fact that the government put a stop to it?
It may not just be about time, because some of the requirement that they put on the other side, then the other side may not understand what you people are talking about, because here they're just willing to partner with you. And when you put so many other requirements that they have to fulfill it, or that sometimes it's the other party may not understand, and therefore they end up giving up.
Are you outrightly saying, Dr. Mutio, that some of these requirements are unjustifiable, unrealistic, unreasonable?
Well, they might be reasonable and justifiable, but what I think is that they may not be necessary as such. There might be there's a need to relook into the whole policy of how those things can be done.
The reason why I asked the question is because I am aware that there are research projects that involve partnerships that come to our universities. So if that happens, it means there is a way in which it can be done. What I'm asking is that, are you saying there is no way of easing this process? Because research grants are a very definitive way of ensuring that funds actually come to the university. But anyway, that aside, what percentage of the tuition fees that are paid by the students, the income that comes to university, what percentage of the tuition fees, what is the percentage of the tuition fees to the revenue of the university?
Well, I think that would be different from different universities because some universities have more students than the other.
Okay. Let's talk about your university.
My university. I think with that, the percentage of that or the income that could be generated through fees, I'm not very sure about the exact figure, but I can assure you that would be very little. Perhaps it would be 10% or even less of what would be required to meet the expenses.
You know, I asked the question.
Yes.
You say the current fees that are paid by students per year, depending again on the course, is around, say, 16,000?
The 16,000 for the government does not now depend with the course. It cuts across.
Okay. Now, do you know what the fees for secondary schools is? If you're looking at the structure of the 2022-2023 year, per year for secondary schools, 22,000.
Correct.
For which secondary school? Sub-county, county, extra county?
So long as it's government. Okay, but usually, I think you've asked a valid question. The national schools will charge more.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about an average where the Mwananchi goes. What do you call it?
Sub-county.
Yes, exactly. 22,000.
Yes.
And most of these fees are paid by the parents. Those who get bursary are not the majority.
Sure.
Okay? Now, if it's a boarding school, it's 45,000. So what is being proposed, the 48,000, the point I'm trying to make is that it isn't that much higher.
Sure.
Okay?
Correct.
So when you say there is resistance, it's the same parents who had children in some of these schools and secondary schools, same parents who have children going to university. Why is 48,000 shillings a problem? And the children who are going to go to university are fewer than the ones we have in our secondary schools. Just by virtue of the numbers that we see passing, going to university.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, I think the question that you're asking is the same question that I've been asking, because we may not understand why we fight that paying 48,000 in the university is going to be too high. But of course, one is that the government has been slow to approve that. Of course, one thing that we can be sure is that even if the fee was to be increased by 10 shillings, the students are coming out to resist that. That is going now to lead to perhaps closure of some universities. But it must be a bullet that we must be ready to.
I was going to ask the question, why not just close the university? I mean, look, there is a practicality to this. It's not as though the fees is being increased because somebody wants to increase the fees.
Sure.
The fees is going to be... The moment you have a cost of living adjustment program, things go up. They don't go down.
Correct.
Okay? And the cost of living has gone up. So, by extension, it is the most logical thing. Now, I know we are undergoing some serious problems, but you see, that's a separate discussion.
Sure.
The need to raise fees is just one discussion. And the practicality of it, in my mind, is patently clear. Okay?
Sure.
Now, other avenues of ensuring that children go to university if they don't have the means exist in the country. Okay? But even this having been said, there is this other bullet that must be bitten. The management of the resources in our universities. You cannot tell me that this rampant problem we keep talking about is just because the government doesn't do this, the fees isn't enough. No. Is there a clear record of the jurisprudence that has been followed in managing the resources that the universities have in the best possible way? Can we look and say, this money, you can say what you like, but it has been managed well. Can you say that with great certainty?
Well, I think we have been having cases where the university management have had cases of mismanagement. We have cases in court. You are aware about that. And therefore, the issue of mismanagement, yes, we have some cases that have been there. But again, we cannot generalize and say that has been the real cause of the problem. But it could also be a factor in that, because then we've got cases where these resources have been clearly been mismanaged. Maybe you realize that in our country, the way the vice chancellors are appointed is also political. And therefore, in some cases where there is that mismanagement, the universities, may not come out very clear to fight this. But as a union, we have always been very clear on this to ensure that, the university resources are well managed. For example, a few years ago, and I think this is perhaps what has sadly brought these financial challenges, there was the issue of parallel students. Now, the parallel students, or what we call the Module 2, those are the students who got the minimum requirement of a C+, and they could not be admitted to the public universities through the government-sponsored students. So what they did is that they flocked the public universities, and they paid a lot of money from their own pockets to study in the universities. But then I think the challenge was that the government requires vice-chancellors to declare how much of this money that was coming to the universities. And because, of course, there was a lot of money, some vice-chancellors did not want to disclose. And I think that now began the friction between the government and the university management. Because then, as you say, then they had a lot of money, and perhaps much of it was not being managed properly. Now, you realize that a few years ago, I think it was during the reign of Matiang, the policies changed and some structures changed. So therefore, every single student who got C+ and above currently goes to university through the government-sponsored. And therefore, the universities no longer have the self-sponsored programs where students are coming to pay, their own fees. If that was the case, I can assure you now, universities could be having a lot of money. But now to disclose that and to manage that, perhaps that is another discussion.
So as I hear you, Dr. Muchio, you're saying a number of things. Number one is either the government considers increasing the amount of money per student that it's sending to the universities in the differentiated unit cost from 40% to anywhere closer to 100%. If not that, then the government should make it easier for universities to be able to do business that can generate money.
Sure.
And this doing business could be just from provision of hostel facilities, going into real estate. Like you said, that is a no-brainer. Universities, you have hostels, let the hostels be available, generate money from that, and others, and also make it easier for grants to come. Why would it be so difficult for the government to actually allow this to happen?
Well, that's a discussion that will be picking up with the CAS, because as we said, we expect that he's going to bring on board all key stakeholders. As a union, we have a date with him. We will present all these proposals to him. I am very sure he will be, I know that he met the vice chancellors the other day. He will be meeting all key stakeholders, and he will collect all these proposals. And I think as he takes them to the executive, they might consider some of these options.
But at the same time, I've asked to ask, we see universities owning prime piece of real estate, for example, in the CBD.
Yes.
Multi-story towers in Nairobi, in Kisumu, in Eldoret now, which are even having
even
problems.
Own hotels.
Own hotels,
Yes,
right?
Yes, they do.
So that has already been allowed by the government.
Sure.
What's the problem?
Well, we don't say that government doesn't allow. What we see is the process. And sometimes they could allow, of course, sometimes they allow, not sometimes there's a way to, there are procedures to follow before that is done. That happened most likely, and I am sure what you're referring to, because I know the universities that is in your mind, that happened during the time that I was explaining, when universities were generating a lot of money through the self-sponsored programs, because the self-sponsored students were paying the fees that is charged in private universities. So you in my class, one is paying 16,000, the other one is paying over 100,000. So that was the time that now universities could generate a lot of money. That is when they even moved to CBD so that they can compete for those students taking education to their doorsteps, so that now they can reach to the customers, that is the students. So they bought those buildings to, so that they could move closer. But currently now, I wonder if there's any universities that will be willing, that will be able to buy.
Even this piece of land that we are selling in Naserian, Phase 3.
Yes.
They can't even afford 650K for a 50 by 100.
And if you do that, even with the 20%, even with the 20 shillings off, I don't
they
know.
still can't.
Because you'll
Final
be surprised, sir, that if currently there's even universities that even paying 57% of their salaries. And I want to assure you, I don't think there's any employee in the country who is earning about 50% of their net salary. And that has been happening for years, just because they cannot pay 100% of their salaries.
Dr. Muchio, as we conclude the conversation, what next for UASU in terms of engagement with the new CS?
Well, we have a date with the CS. We'll be tabling our proposals, our demand. But key to our engagement is our 2017-2021 national CBA that has not been fully funded by the government. And we hope that the first place is that the government is going to fund our national CBA, because we are employees of the government. And when we negotiate our national CBA for our members, the expectation is that the government should fund that CBA. That has not been done, and the top on our discussion is that the government should start by funding our national CBA so that our members will begin to enjoy that.
Okay.
Wow.
So first agenda is tuongeze pesa. My goodness. Anyway, thank you very much. That's a job. That's a job of the union.
Sure, yeah.
Dr. Onesmus Mutio is the National Organizing Secretary of the Universities Academic Staff Union. He's been here with us. We'll be talking about funding universities, the cost of training people in our universities, especially public universities, whether we are paying directly from school fees or coming from government. Asante sana. We'll call you again, even after you've had a meeting with the CS, not to talk about your pay, but to talk about the universities and the challenges that they're facing.
And how we can overcome these challenges.
And how we can overcome the challenges, indeed. Keep it here for more conversations. Coming up in the next hour, we'll also be telling you more about the Samsung Galaxy gadgets that we have with us in the studio, 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
At the top of the hour on Vibes Radio.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Inspector General of Police nominee Javed Komi appeared before the Parliamentary Committee of Vetting, where he assured Kenyans that he'll protect them from extrajudicial killings as well as forceful disappearance. Komi, when asked how he will deal with the high cases of Kenyan domestic workers being mishandled in the Asian countries, he had this to say.
We had an engagement with them, and they would tell me all these stories you read about back at home, it may not be the reality. That is a matter we really need to study the truth in it, or exactly what is happening. It needs them to be understood very well through multi-agency approach. Immigration, of course, the labor ministry also be interested. These are our children.
If I promise you a reward if you report a rogue traffic police officer, saying the process will be made easy as all officers will have name tags on them.
The truth is, what is happening along our roads is ugly. It's not acceptable. That is an issue I'll deal with. The chair, I intend to go further, have a discussion with the service commanders so that we can have a reward mechanism to the members of the public. So that any member of the public is out there, captures a police officer receiving even a cent. That evidence is presented to us. Then there is a reward to that member of the public.
Now, Azimio leaders in Parliament have castigated President William Ruto's administration of unwarranted roadside declarations by government officials. The MP said the country has no leadership or direction at the height of crucial issues which needs the government's intervention. Led by Minority Leader Pion Dai, he was accompanied by MPs Junet Mohammed. The lawmakers called on Ruto to call his troops to order and stop the roadside declarations, citing remarks by Education CS Ezekiel Machogu on the effect of university education funding. The leader said that so far the UDA government is simply occupying space and not governing. They also took issue with Roads and Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen for misleading Kenyans on the release of SGR contracts. And senior officials of President William Ruto's UDA party have denied backing a plan to repeal presidential term limit. UDA chairperson Johnson Muthama, while reacting to Fafi MP Yakub Salah's proposal, said the party had not discussed the matter and did not support his proposal. Sentiments to lift the two-term limit were voiced by Salah, who claimed that a group of UDA MPs were working on a legislative proposal to remove the two-term limit and replace it with an age limit of 75. Human rights defender Boniface Mwangi also warned President Ruto against backing the plan, terming it as a poisoned chalice that will hamper his re-election. The 2010 Constitution states that no person may serve as president for more than 5 years. A nominated Senator Gloria Oruoba wants the Standing Committee on Information, Communications and Technology of the Senate to offer a statement into the alleged cases of funds embezzled at the Media Council of Kenya. Speaking before the House, Oroba noted that for the better part of 2 years, there have been reports doing rounds on mainstream media purporting the alleged misappropriation of funds at the media regulator, but the matter has yet to be addressed publicly. According to Oroba, the committee should probe claims of alleged diversion of MCK funds, including resources that had been earmarked for the training of journalists during the COVID-19 pandemic and in the days leading up to the August 9th general election. And Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki has reiterated Kenya's commitment to tackling the global abuse problem. Speaking at the official opening of the 30th Heads of National Drug Law Enforcement Agencies meeting in Nairobi, Kindiki called on the African region to join hands and speak in one voice in the war against drug trafficking. Kindiki underscored Kenya's call on developed countries to support developing countries in the area of technology capacity building, policy development and relevant equipment to support and enhance their unified response to specific drug issues. And the Nyeri court was told how former Kenya Defence Forces soldier Major Peter Mugure allegedly transported the bodies of his estranged wife Joyce Ombua and her 2 children, who he said to have killed at the Laikipia Air Base in October 2019. Collins Pamba, who was accused together with Mugure but later turned to be a state witness, took the stand before Justice Martin Meyer and gave details of how he assisted the key suspect load, transport and bury the remains of the 3. The case continues today. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseta. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so maybe we're looking at things changing a little bit after 8 o'clock, but it looks like traffic is still doing the rounds that it has been through Wednesday morning. It hasn't been too crazy. We're looking at a little bit here and there off Thika Superhighway. It's expected to be just so. And now is when we're seeing a little bit of a pack up of traffic on Jogo Road. That thing that has been happening on Likoni Road is still going on, and it's feeding now onto the southern bypass. And traffic is then heavy going in a southerly direction, going out then towards Langata Road. So we're looking at that happening. Not quite sure why. Raila Odinga Way, outbound traffic is moving really slowly. Coming out of Westlands is also doing that as well. That whole area then going off from Gong Road and then through towards Gitanga, and everything else then now spits out onto Wayaki Way. And now we're looking at Muthaiga coming out towards City Park on Limuru Road. Heavy traffic. And so it looks like it's around this time that traffic hour has started proper. Okay. Are you stuck somewhere? Have you found a good route? Let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It is 7 minutes after 8. Very good morning and welcome to the third hour of The Situation Room. This morning we are live from Nairobi to the world on SpiceFM, on KTN Home and on YouTube and on Facebook. And this is a station that's telling you about the Samsung Galaxy gadgets that we have. Ndu has a Samsung Galaxy Bud 2 Pro.
Yes, I do. And you know, these are really nifty things because what it does is that it shuts you out
Excuse me, from
Shuts who out?
The rest of the world. When you're listening to your
the
music.
you is us now.
You is us. You is you.
Okay. So it shuts us out.
Shuts us out from your world.
Sorry?
See, this thing is dangerous.
No, it's not really just dangerous. Here, in Kenyan speak,
I'm listening to my music.
We're being enjoyed.
Hear what you're saying. And then if you were to call me, because I know you would during the day, then all I would need to do was tap twice, and then I would be able to, hear your phone call and then go back to my music. Because then I can actually be in a meeting. You know how things are now on Zoom and virtual? You can be driving in, well, I don't advocate for that, but you need to attend a quick meeting and say, look, let me park and continue, kind of thing. And these Samsung Bud Pro Bud 2s will allow you to do just that. Lock out the world, listen to your music, lock out the world, attend your meeting, and be really captured in the thing that you're doing at that time. Really nifty device to have, if I may say so myself.
Okay. You've said so yourself.
You've said so yourself. Does it work if you just have one of them in your ear?
Well, no, because then you'd have to, listen to the other things that everybody else is saying throughout the other ear. Yeah,
I see. That's where you're going with this.
This is where I'm going with it. Right. 2 is always better than 1.
Okay.
City, give us the day's proverb.
Right. Indeed. He who begins a conversation does not see the end.
He who begins a conversation does not see the end.
Yeah, like that.
Proverb from Mauritania.
When you read it from the tablet, it's very interesting. It's much clearer. There's something about this screen that they've got here. It's clearer. I'm realizing that because I read it from the tablet. Now I'm reading it from my notepad. I'm wondering why is this thing not looking the same.
You're wondering what is this the same proverb that I had?
This is a different proverb, but anyway, same proverb.
Same proverb.
Same proverb.
Yeah,
just clearer.
We have a guest in the studio. He's the Honorable Abdul Haro from Mandera South, the Member of Parliament for Mandera South. Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Eric.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Asante, pleasure.
That proverb from Mauritania. Do you relate? Is there anything similar in the Somali language?
Just repeat it again.
Yes, this I can repeat with great ease. He who begins a conversation does not see the end.
Yeah, definitely.
What does it mean?
It means once you begin a conversation, it might most probably kick off either a storm or a conversation which will take a life of its own and engulf, perhaps, if it was in a locality, engulf a whole region, a whole country, and it might become a big debate. Like what I think was a simple thing said by the Fafi MP in Garissa over the weekend. It's now become a big national debate.
He will not see the end of it, the Honorable Salah Yakub.
Yes.
What is this? He who begins a conversation does not see the end.
Right.
Karibu sana mheshimiwa.
Asante sana.
When we talk about Mandera South, how far is it? What's the biggest town in Mandera South first?
The biggest town in Mandera South is a town called Elwak, where I was born. Elwak is just after you've crossed the Wajir border into Mandera, you pass a town called Kutulo, and then 60 kilometers from Kutulo, you land in Elwak, which is a border town. There's a twin Elwak on the other side of Somalia, also called Elwak, sometimes also called Boruhache. So it's an old historical town. The Second World War it was part of the battleground during the Second World War. Yeah.
Why was it a battleground?
Pardon?
Why was it a battleground?
Well, you see, when the Italians and the British and the Germans were battling for control of Somalia and also Kenya, I think it was a strategic town for the Brits because it had permanent water. It was perhaps a terrain which was good for the military to operate from. They had built a fort there from which they had formed a base. The people of Mandera, generally that time the population was not very big, but Elwak was one of the biggest town in that part of the world that time also. Yeah.
When you hear of Mandera, we think about very many things, including, of course, terrorist attacks, insecurity in the area. We think about the ongoing drought. This is one of those counties that was, from the very beginning, listed as those that are facing the serious ongoing drought. So there are very many updates that we'll be seeking from you. So let's just start with the current situation in terms of the food situation, the food security situation with the people of your constituency and then the greater Mandera County.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very good question because it is something that is really just like the conversation from the proverb is just read. It's something that is actually becoming a big issue now. As we speak, Mandera South constituency and Mandera County in general, just like many parts of northern Kenya, is going through one of the severest droughts in history. Some people say it's the worst in 40 years. Others say it is the worst in 60 years. But definitely it is a very, very serious drought. And